Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the evolution of antibiotics today. So my topic is about the rise and decline of the application and the effect on diseases of antibiotics. So what drew me to this topic? Because I want to study pharmacy or medical stuff when I go to college. So what do I hope to find out? So I want to find out the history about penicillin, which is the first antibiotic invented, and the golden age of antibiotics, which means the period of time when it's most widely used and is most effective. And also to find out more about the problem of antibiotic resistance. So antibiotic resistance is basically affect everyone in the globe right now, and it's a very serious problem. So I want to find out more about why it's happened and what people are gonna do about it. So what I've found so far, so back to the basic definition. So what is an antibiotic? So it's a type of medication that destroys and slows down the growth of bacteria. And Alexander Fleming, which is the scientist in the previous slide, this guy is Alexander Fleming, and he discovered penicillin. So how did he discover it is, so he was growing some bacteria in a dish, and then he went off to holiday and then came back. He found there's moles growing on the dish. So this is the mole he found. And then what interesting that he found is around the mole there's like a clear ring around it, and then he found that the bacteria that was grew before has gone around the ring, but then you can see right here there's the normal bacteria still here. So he think there must be something inside the mole that kills the bacteria, and that's what he found about found penicillin. And then it's not until 1941 that the U.S. has mass-produced penicillin, and by 1945 there was 7 trillion units of antibiotics produced per month. And I found that this drug, penicillin, is widely used during World War II. So they were used to treat war-related injuries, severe wounds, and also bacterial infection by soldiers. And you can see the poster say, thanks to penicillin, he will come home. And then I found there's 3 main reasons that caused antibiotic resistance to increase. So the first one is the overuse by humans. So actually we don't need antibiotics for simple infections. Many of them are viral and they don't respond to antibiotics. And when people overtake the antibiotics and they don't let our own immune system to heal, it will only allow the resistance strains to grow and they won't kill the bacteria. And the second reason is the overuse by animals, farming animals. So there are 80% of antibiotics in the US are used on factory farms. So actually animals consume more antibiotics than humans, and people fed them with antibiotics because to prevent infections, because usually farms are very overcrowded and they're in dirty conditions. And also humans use them as a growth promoter because the antibiotics will kill bacteria and then somehow they will gain weight. And scientists found out that animals have antibiotic resistant genes, so it will pass to their offspring, so the problem will remain. And then also the bacteria that were killed will eventually pass on to humans if humans eat uncooked food. And the third reason is about economics, and it's very expensive to develop an antibiotic. I found that on average, pharmaceutical companies spend 5 billions in research and testing for each drug, and it is also getting more complex and harder to get approved by the FDA, which is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, to get the new drug to the market. And I found that they only approved 2 antibiotics in the past 5 years. And then I read an article from the New York Times to say the World Health Organization plan aims to combat resistance to antibiotic drugs. So basically, the United Nations and the WHO, they have a meeting, and they came up with some solutions to solve the antibiotic resistance problem. So basically, they came up with the plan. The plan emphasizes the need to develop surveillance of resistant, act more fully to prevent infections, better control the use of existing antibiotics, and develop mechanisms to support investment in new antibiotic drugs. So they call all countries to work together, because if this problem is not solved, it's only going to get more serious and affect our next generation. And then I found a book. It's called The Coming Plague. It's by Laurie Garrett. So in this book, Garrett is trying to explain the threat to us humans in the future, with all the kind of worldwide and epidemics, diseases, and the rapid mutation of viruses. And she also concluded that we need a better system to find out new disease and to detect drug resistance. And then I read the introduction of this book. So in the introduction, she mentioned her uncle. Her uncle's life around 1930s. So it was the time before antibiotics were discovered. So her uncle was a medical student, and he worked in all the the hospitals. And then he mentioned that tuberculosis is a very, very common disease at that time, and all the tuberculosis patients were packed in the hospital. And then, but because there's no antibiotics, so doctors at that time, they didn't really know how to treat it, so they basically just gave them better diets, fresh air, and more exercise. So clearly it's not very effective. They're just hoping they can survive. And then her uncle later on also caught pneumonia, which is like a lung infection, when he was working in a hospital in LA. And then he said he was treated by tender loving care and oxygen. So clearly there's nothing he could do. And doctors at that time had to work very quickly as well, because these kind of bacteria, they spread really, really quickly, and they only have very little medical support. So with the discovery of antibiotics, it is a really great jump on curing these kind of disease. So my working thesis is, although the discovery of antibiotics was one of the greatest advances in therapeutic medicine in the 1940s, the overuse of this widely available medicine has forced the revival of antibiotic resistance.